just click here on the start button. All right. So here, the machine will be initialized. There will be a moment when you'll be asked to point to the setup, the Oracle Linux installation file, which is exactly this moment right here. Look, it's asking you the following. What is the setup? Where is the ISO? The Oracle Linux installation file that will run on this virtual machine. And then here you're going to click on this option, choose Other. Here, go to your clipboard or Downloads folder and click on your ISO, your Oracle Linux installation file, all right? You'll need to click right here on the Open button and then carefully select this specific option, which is labeled as Mount and Boot. After you have successfully clicked here to confirm your selection, the system will then proceed. And subsequently, Oracle VirtualBox will automatically initiate the installation process for Oracle Linux, beginning the setup of the operating system, right? You can close this little window here, see? Look here, see? It will start automatically in 45 seconds. But you can, if you want, you can just press enter, okay? So it starts right away, and then it will begin the installation. All right, you can click here and close this screen. You can also maximize it here. Now it's going to start the installation, okay? If any error message pops up, don't worry about it. There are some messages where it might show an error because there's some little file that isn't needed for the installation, but it couldn't find it. But these are files that aren't guaranteed necessary, all right? So here, look, it's performing the necessary checks before actually starting the installation. So I'll just let it run here. If you lose control of your mouse, it might happen that your mouse disappears inside here. If that situation arises, please press the control key, the one located on the right-hand side of your keyboard, to proceed. There are two control keys, right? If you lost control of the mouse, if your mouse disappeared here, look, so you can drag it, press the right control key, okay? So I left this tip here, look. If the control key doesn't work, press the right Alt key on your keyboard. All right, I'll let this run here. And as soon as a distinctly different screen appears, which would be a detailed graphical screen asking, for example, which specific language your Linux operating system will utilize, I'll promptly come back and show you that very important screen. In the meantime, I'll temporarily pause the video recording so you don't have to patiently wait for this process to complete. I'm just here to simply show that it's currently downloading. Okay, it's now starting the installation process. And depending on the specific amount of allocated memory and the total number of CPUs you have carefully assigned, and also most importantly, if you are installing the system on a solid-state drive, SSD, or traditional hard disk drive, HDD, the installation process might indeed take significantly more or considerably less time. Wouldn't you agree? So try to install virtual machines on an SSD because it will be much faster than installing on a magnetic disk on an HDD, all right, which is much slower. It can be hundreds of times slower than an SSD. If you don't have one, try to get an SSD because the price has dropped a lot, right? And install it in your personal computer because it will give you a huge performance boost and save you a lot of time. All right, so it's worth it, right? Nowadays, time is something scarce. So the faster you get your tasks done, the faster you complete your training and everything else, the better it is instead of waiting for a hard drive to process. So there's really no reason for you to still be working with an HDD these days. You can find SSDs at very attractive prices. So here, the screen I mentioned to you is the first screen a welcome screen for Linux. So it wants to know which language you're going to install Oracle Linux in, okay, on your VM. So here, let's use the default as if we were running this in a production environment, okay? So let's go ahead and work with the English language, all right? So type English down here, okay? So you're gonna install Oracle in English. It doesn't make sense to install Oracle Linux in Portuguese, right? Because all the new fixes and security pack updates are always released in English first, correct? So in a production environment, there's no such thing as installing servers in Portuguese, all right? So here, I'm also gonna select this option. It's already set as the default. Let's choose the option here. Look, do you see that the mouse has already disappeared? Sometimes the mouse disappears here, see? It no longer has mouse control outside of this window. So to get the mouse back under external control outside this window, I press Control, okay? Let me press it a few more times here. No, I'm pressing Shift, sorry. I press Control, and then you can use your mouse again. For me, it still hasn't worked. Let me try here with Alt. Sometimes Alt works. Right Alt on the keyboard. No, it still hasn't worked. Maybe on the next screens we'll be able to get out of this option. Okay. So it even shows the option down here. It writes at the bottom of the screen, right Control C. But here for me, it's not working at the moment. No. Let me press it a few more times to see if it works. No, it didn't. Let's see if it works on the next screens. So I'll click here on Continue on this button, Continue. I'm actually having a bit of trouble here. It's not letting me click on Continue. Let me scroll up here because I selected another option that wasn't in English. These are truly the amazing wonders of modern computing. I'm going to use the arrow key here. My mouse is already acting up. I can't click here. See? So I'll use the arrow key and my keyboard, okay? I'm going to press Enter now. I'm going to press Enter. I'm going to press Tab here to see if it goes to the next options. See if it comes to this button here. Look, the Continue one. I think it has already enabled the Continue button. No, not yet. Press Tab. Let's see if the focus comes here to the Continue button. Look, the focus is there. So I'll press Enter to see if it works. Yeah, it's not working. It's interesting. It worked. Now it worked. After a while, it went through. It could be that my machine is slow too, or maybe there's something else going on in the background. It's interesting that in the lab, when I did the lab the first time, I didn't have this problem. Okay. But then you'll have to get to that Continue button, and this next screen will show up. Look. Let me see if now I can get out of here with Control. Look, now it works, see? Isn't that weird? On this screen, Control is already enabled to exit from inside this screen, okay? Well, what are we going to do now? Following the training guide. Let me see where I left off. So let's make some configurations here. Look, for example, keyboard, if you want to change the keyboard to a Portuguese keyboard, you could come here, okay? So you could click on this option here. If it lets me click, look, it did. And change it to Portuguese. You could simply type the desired option down here, then click on the prominent plus sign, and subsequently search for Portuguese, correct? And then I would have to search for Portuguese here with the Portuguese keyboard, but you don't need to do that. Let's just work with the English keyboard, okay? But if you wanted to, you could do that. Once Portuguese appears here, just come up here and click done. Then it goes back to the previous screen, time and dates. If you click on this time and dates option, a screen will open for you to set where your server will be running. Okay? Which zone, for example, will it be in Brazil? Then you will just need to choose the zone. So since you're probably installing from Brazil, the Brazil zone option will already be selected here, okay? This will have an impact later on at the time your server is running, right? So let me go back to the previous screen. If you want to set actually, this is quite important now, just if you want to, it's absolutely important, right? To properly set the root password, the super user password for your Oracle Linux operating system. And down here, if you want to create another user besides root, you could create another user who would access Oracle Linux through this option here. All right. But here, let's just set a password for root, which is the super user of Oracle Linux. So click here and the screen will open. In my case here, I'm having a bit of an issue. Just wait for the little hand to appear, okay? Actually, the little hand has to show up here, look. See? Once the little hand appears, then it's ready to open the screen, right? The little hand has to appear. It can't just be the arrow. So here you're gonna set the password for your Linux user. I'm gonna set it as Linux 123, okay? It's a simple password, it's a weak password. In day-to-day use, in a real production environment, you wouldn't create such a weak password. In fact, it's even showing here, look, weak password. But just for the course, I'm going to use this password, Linux 123, and then I'll match this password down here, okay? To make them the same, you're going to click here, twice here on done. All right. Here, after it confirms, it asks you to click twice, okay? So here, you'll simply click twice, right here. Done. There, I managed to click. This screen will be closed. There's already an indication that a root password exists. So if you wanted, for example, to create another user to access Oracle Linux, you could do it here, see? Right? I'm going to pause the lesson here since it's getting a bit long, and then we'll come back to fill in some of these details that are important, okay? So that is all it is. I can't even pause the lesson without leaving the spot because the mouse is stuck, see? So I'm going to right-click with the keyboard. Let's see if it will release. Now it's released, okay?